Hey guys, what's up? This is LJS here, and today I'm back with a deck profile. This time it's on the sort of new strike deck for Nova Grapplers. So will be a deck that focuses on the units that's from GBT01, and it is focusing on the new Nova Grappler strike card support and stuff like that. So yeah, so this deck is quite interesting. It has Nova Grapplers for this set has a lot of re-standing capabilities. And the deck revolves around restanding and have units that power up from restanding and kill your opponent with multiple attacks. So as you can see, as you may know, this deck relies heavily on rear guards. So against decks that are controlled based like Gear Chronicle, Kagero Nakami, it can suffer a little. But with proper setup and with proper planning, he can hit real hard. So let's just get to the deck, shall we? So I'll go through the deck list quickly, so that those of you who know the skill and just want to see a list can see it. And those of you who want to know the skills and why I run certain cards and how to use certain cards, stay tuned after the deck list. So for starter, we run Extreme Battler Run Bowl. Definitely run him. He's useful because he can restand when something else in the same column restands. So basically, when you restand something, he also follows it and you get a full column almost sort of for free, I guess. And he's a 5k base, so it's a decent booster as well. And for grade 3, we run, the main grade 3 is Extreme Battler Victor. So he is your strike breaker, and he is the main boss of this main grade 3 of this deck, and you want to run into him ASAP because he allows a lot of restanding shenanigans. So for our secondary grade 3, I run Muscle Shriek. His art is really weird, but he is the secondary grade 3 I run. I don't run other secondary grade 3s from the GBT01 because I think he's probably the best Generation Break 1 grade 3 to use. His skill is Generation Break 1 and it allows you to restand rear guards. So at least, you know, he does stuff. Compared to the other Generation Break 1 grade 3, you don't really gain much. But of course, another alternative grade 3 you can run is the Riser Mega Flare, so at least you have a Legion alternative. But for this deck is purely focuses on the Generation Break support, so yeah, I don't run him. So next, for grade 2s, we run 4 of this Cool Hank. So Cool Hank is Nova Grappler's Generation Booster Vanguard guy, and he allows you to do some decent combos and restand rear guards. Next, we have Extreme Battler Sazanda. He is a really OP card in his deck. So he is one of your main key units to restand because he hits hard. So each time he restands, he hits harder and harder and harder. So yeah, I run 4 of him because he's good. Yeah. Next, I run 3 of the Extreme Battler Gunzork. So this is your Generation Break 1 12k attacker. Next, for grade 1s, run 4 Perfect Guards. This is the Lady Cyclone, the damage unflipper. She allows options to unflip, and this deck, even though individually the cards don't take much counterblast, but as you go through the game, you will realize that you eventually slowly eat up all your counterblasts, so having an unflipping option is always good. Next, I run 4 of the Extreme Battler Arashid. He is there to number 1 as a strike fodder, and number 2 to help you more consistently get your main grade 3 Victor. Next, run 3 of the Final Wrench guy. He is quite useful because this deck is mostly about restanding, and he is able to gain power if something in the same column restands. So if you restand, he is able to hit for harder, I guess. Next, I run 3 of Claydol Mechanic. So he is in there to help unflip damage. And for triggers, I run 4 criticals, especially Red Lightning, specifically Red Lightning, because Red Lightning is the critical that allows you to unflip damage. And 4 Energy Girl. She is actually a really good skill to use because she's a stand trigger, but if you don't trigger her from trigger checking, you can also use her to stand something when she's on rear guard circle. So you get additional standing. Next, I run another 4 stands. This time it's the Subliminal Grey. So I specifically run him because he has a skill to be able to go back in the deck. So yeah. And finally 4 heals. So now let's get to the skills, shall we? For first, the starter. Oh wait, no, let's go through the G units first. So for G units, I run 4 Meteor Kaiser Victor Plasma. He's your restanding strike. So in case you face opponents that kill your rear guards, at least you have something that can, is sort of you can have a self-sustaining Vanguard. Next, 2 of this Meteor Kaiser vic-ten. So he is your early game strike to use, and when he hits, he restands rear guards and they get 5k, so it's good. And finally, around 2 Miracle Element Atmos as a finisher or a power beater thingy majigger. So now let's get to the skills. So first we have Runball, the starter. So Runball is your Generation Break 1 starter for Nova Grappler. So Generation Break 1, if when another unit in the same column as this unit stand this unit. Next you have your Extreme Battle Victor. He's your main grade 3. So he is the Strike Breaker / Generation Break 2 Vanguard that all the clans are now having. So his first skill, Generation Break 2, is a really good skill. Basically, when this unit attacks the Vanguard, he himself gains 5k, and you can choose one of your rear guards and stand it, and that unit gets 5k. So when you manage to reach late game, early game you can start pounding them, but once you reach late game, when you have Generation Break 2, this unit starts hitting even harder because he can attack with extra 5k, and you get additional unit to stand that stands and gain 5k to attack again. So, and in late game, restanding is very powerful because people are starting to guard attacks because it's late game, and if they don't have enough guard, they will just die. Oh, so and his second skill, I forgot about that, is a Strike Break skill. So basically, when a unit strikes on him, your new Vanguard gains the skill of when he attacks the Vanguard, count +1 and choose one of your rear guards, stand it, and that unit gains 5k. And until end of turn, you can only use this once a turn. So you can only use this ability once a turn, so it doesn't stack with Victor Plasma. So Victor Plasma is a restander, so you can't restand units twice. So it's a good strike back skill. It's good for early game restanding shenanigans as well. So yeah. Next is Martial Shriek. I choose him. He's your secondary grade 3 because first of all, his first skill is Generation Break 1. You can counterblast 2. When this unit attacks Vanguard, you can pay the cost. If you do, choose 2 of your regards and stand them, and they get 2k. So at least if you didn't write Victor, you have him and it's just a Generation Break 1 skill to allow you to restand 2 rear guards. So yeah, so at least, even if you don't have your main grade 3, you still have some restanding activities going on. And his second skill is sort of a bonus. When you write him, you can counterblast 1 and soul blast 1, and choose one of your grade 1 or less rear guards. Then your opponent have to choose a rear guard with power attack less than or equal to that unit's power and retire it. So at least, if he's not too bad of a secondary grade 3 to run, he's a rare. And if you write him, you can retire one of your opponent's rear guards, and he's able to restand 2 rear guards in Generation Break 1. So it's a decent skill. Even though Counterblast 2 is a bit heavy, at least it's better than nothing. Next is your Cool Hang. So Cool Hang is your Generation Break 1 guy. When he attacks the Vanguard and he's boosted, Counterblast 1. If you do, choose one of your rear guards, restand it, and he gets 5k. And you can only use this ability once a turn. So I think Bushiroad was a bit smart in that, you can't have, you only make this skill usable once a turn, so that in case you have 2 Cool Hangs, you can't go into an infinite loop of restanding and restanding non-stop. So although if you can do that, it'll be really cool and broken, but I think Bushiroad purposely made it once a turn, so you can't keep using his skill. So yeah, he's useful because he allows you to chain restandings, and if you plan your attacks right in a turn, you can potentially get up to, let's say, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 attacks a turn or more. Yeah, and when you combo it with the next card, I will tell you, each attack gets more and more powerful once he restands. So this is one of the star of this deck, Sazanda. So don't mind the wording here. There's a typo. So basically, his skill is Generation Break 1. When this unit stands due to an effect of one of your cards, he gets 5k until end of turn. So it's not supposed to be that battle because Bushiroad misprinted. The actual correct, if you check the website errata, it says until end of that turn. So each time he restands, he gains 5k. It stacks. So let's say your field has Victor and you strike with this guy, and then you have him on the field. You have you have your Victor skill to restand, you have his skill to restand, you have his skill to restand. So he can potentially restand 3 or even 4 times, and he can gain a stack of 20k by himself. But also note that each of their skills gives 5k when they restand something as well. So in the end, he gains an insane amount of power because makes him restand and he gives 5k. He himself gives himself 5k. So each time he restands from any of the skill, he essentially this guy essentially gains 10k, which is insane. So he can potentially attack for 39k by himself eventually. If you manage to set up your field properly, it can hit for really hard. Really hard. Next is the Gunzord guy. So he is your 12k attacker. So generation break 1. When this unit attacks a Vanguard, he gains 3k. So in case you don't have any of this, in case you don't have Sazanda, he is a good backup beater because when you restand him, he can at least he still hits for some numbers and can still hit Vanguards. So yeah, 3 of him. Next is your Perfect Guard. So basically she is the Perfect Guard that can only Perfect Guard your Vanguard. And if you have copy of her in the drop zone, flip with damage. Next is the Extreme Battle Aura Shit. So he is your Stride Fodder. His first skill is when you call him, reveal a grade 3 from your hand. If you do, search a deck for a grade 3 with Victor in his card name and put it into your hand. And then choose a card from your hand and discard it. So his first skill is useful because it sort of helps you improve consistency of getting Victor. So let's say in your early hand, you have him and him. Use his skill, reveal him, search a deck for Victor, and throw him away. So that way you can guarantee riding Victor, and you want to ride Victor because Victor's skill is really good, as I mentioned earlier. And his second skill is when you discard him for a stride cost, he is a grade 3. So which means you can stride immediately. Next, you have Final Wrench. Look at this guy, gigantic wrench. So his skill is generation break 1. When another unit in the same column as this unit restands due to an effect from one of the cards, he gains 4k. So each time something in front of him restands, he gains 4k. So it stacks. So imagine if you have a column like this, okay? And let's just say you swing with him unboosted, okay? Then you use one of your skill to restand him. Now this whole column will now gain additional 5k and 4k. And let's just say you choose to swing unboosted again, and he restands. He gains an additional 5k and he gains an additional 4k. So each time Sazanda restands, this whole column gains 9k just from these two guys' skill. And if you are able to combo it, as I mentioned earlier, with Victor, Cool Hank, and maybe your strike unit, this whole column can get really massive. And finally you can swing together and hit for a really huge number. And if you get critical triggers, dump it all on this column. And each time it restands, it gets bigger and bigger, and you know, the pressure is just amazing. Yeah, it's unreal. It's just unreal. Next is Clado Mechanic. So Clado Mechanic skill is when you put him on Regard Circle. If you have a Nova Grappler Vanguard, unflip a damage. Sorry guys, my nose is really blocked, so I can't read it properly. So he's in there to unflip damage because some of these cards you use a lot of Counter Blast, especially the strike units. Next is your Red Lightning, your critical trigger. He's also an unflipper, so basically his skill is put this unit in the soul. If you do, choose a damage and unflip it. So I run him because I want unflip damage. Next, I run Energy Girl, Generation Break 1. At the end of the battle that this unit boosted, choose one of your regards and send it. If you do, put this guy in your deck and shuffle your deck. So even though you didn't trigger her, you can still use her to restand another unit. And as you can see, restanding units is really good, and you can put her back in the deck. Next is the Subliminal Grey. His skill is Soul Blast 1 and put this at the bottom of the deck and draw a card. If you do, shuffle your deck. So he's very useful because you can filter your deck and you can put him back into your trigger. So basically you thin your deck and you add more stand triggers into your deck, and your deck essentially becomes a more restanding focused deck. Although right now I'm running 4 of each, I might consider swapping one of each out for an extra critical trigger because critical triggers are really good. So I might switch to running 6 stands and 6 crit because, as I mentioned earlier, dumping criticals on Sazanda and restanding him non-stop is really good because he gets more and more powerful. With that extra critical, your opponent will be hard pressed to keep guarding him. So next, strike unit. So you have Victoplasma. So his skill is Counter Blast 2 and choose a face down card unit from the face down card of himself and flip it face up. So he's a persona flipper. So basically when so Counter Blast 2, flip one of him face up, and if you have 2 or more face up units in your G zone, he gains a skill of he loses triple drive and he's only twin drive, so he loses 1 drive check, and he gains a skill of At the end of battle that this unit attack, discard 2 cards. If you do, restand him. So he is your restander, 26k by himself restander. So in case your opponent kills all your rear guards and you can't do much with your rear guards, at least you have him as a self-sustaining Vanguard that attacks. Although his cost is a bit hefty, counter plus 2. So in a game you typically only use him once because of his hefty cost. But if you're able to unflip with Clado Mechanic or with Red Lightning, you can probably use his skill more than once. So yeah, next is your vic-ten. So basically when his attack hits the Vanguard, choose one of your rear guards, restand it, and he gains 5k. So this guy, in early game, is very useful to combo it with Sazanda, which is this guy, and also with Victor, because you can get an insane amount of restands just with combining these two, combining all these skills. So yeah, this deck does a lot of restands. And finally, Atmos, his skill is when he attacks, counter plus 1, and he gains 10k. So he himself swings for 36k alone, unboosted. Boosted is about 43 or more. So yeah, he's a very good finisher in case your opponent survives all the onslaught of attacks from all your rear guards. At least you have him as a power beater to try to kill your opponent, hopefully, by the end of the turn. So yeah, so this is the Nova Grappler deck, strike deck. As you can see, there is a lot of combos you can pull off and a lot of restanding that you can do. And this deck can potentially hit for really hard. And let's get on to an example of a field setup that can be very deadly. Okay, so here's an example of a field setup that you might have, either mid to late game. So here you have 2 face-up G units. So Generation Break 2 is live. Let's just give an example of a turn you don't strike, but his Generation Break 2 is active, and your field is sort of like this. So first thing you do is swing for this, to a rear guard unboosted. And then, let's say you swing with this side, use his skill, count plus 1, restands. So now he gains 5k from his skill, he gains 5k from his skill, and he gains 12k from his own skill. So now this whole column itself is now a 30k column here. So now let's just say you swing with the whole column boosted, 30k. Now you swing with this unit, use his skill, restand him, he gains 5k, use and attacks. Now after the end of turn, use her skill, restand him. So now he gains an additional 5k from him, and he gains an additional 4k. So this column is now 42k column here, and it attacks. Let's say he gets the stand trigger, you can stand this column. Now you have additional 19k to hit with. So in this turn you have 5 attacks. Potentially 6 attacks if you use her skill to stand him instead. And let's say you get a stand trigger, you get additional more powerful attack. Now let's just say this time you strike with Victor Plasma. Boom, use this skill, count plus 2, and you can have a restanding Vanguard. So now what you do first is you swing with this guy as 1 attack. Swing with him, use his skill, restand, so that's attack number 2. Swing with him, maybe unboosted, attack number 3, because he is now a 19k attacker. And swing with him, number 4. Use his skill to restand. And if you get a stand trigger, he restands. If not, you can use his skill to restand. Now attack with him again. Now attack with him, boosted this time. And check for trigger. If there's no trigger, put him back out of the deck, restand him. And now we can swing with a nice, powerful column. So within this scenario, I lost count of how many attacks you can get. But as you can see, you have multiple attacks, and he gains a lot of, this column gains a lot of power. And you can attack, you also attack twice with your Vanguard. So yeah, this is a pretty powerful combination, although it requires you to set up your field really properly. So as you can see, one of the weaknesses of this deck is that it relies on you having a proper field, and against, like I mentioned earlier, against deck that kills your rear guards, it doesn't do too well. But if you're able to take the game slowly control the state of the game, slowly get your pieces together, and then go all out in just maybe 1 or 2 turns, you're able to deal a lot of damage and, well, basically pull the win. So yeah, so this has been my Nova Grappler strike deck. I hope you like it. Thumbs up if you like the video, and do subscribe if you like my content. And this has been LJS, and I'll see you guys next time.